Let's have a look at how to use Ansible inside Jenkins. So a lot of people are familiar with Jenkins. They use it as a pipeline. They use it to be able to do continuous deployments. Today is a very, very simplistic look at Jenkins. I'm not going to go into pipelines. I'm not going to go into, the Jenkins file and things like that. I'm just going to use the user interface to be able to schedule some things. Now, I actually use Jenkins on a group of web servers that I have. So I've got a cluster of 4 web servers all running Nginx. And the thing that I do is instead of using cron to do cleanup tasks and things like that on the particular web servers, I actually use Jenkins to do it. And the reason that I do that is because I can then see the output. You can't, without messing around in cron and changing your scripts to pipe the output somewhere, you can't see the output of cron. It also allows me to add other web servers to the cluster and easily make the changes in Jenkins instead of having to set everything up on the web servers, and the web servers then become just there to serve web traffic and do nothing else. But today we're going to talk about Ansible. So first things first, we're going to go across and we're going to do a new item, and we're going to call this Ansible test. I'm just going to do a freestyle project. There's many different things that we can talk about at a later date, but let's just pick a freestyle project and press OK. And here is our project. Now, what's going to happen as I'm going through this and having a look at it with you is we may actually need to go and install some more Jenkins modules. But let's just have a look at this. So we could do none of that. We could actually just go ahead and in the build steps do execute shell, type in your command, hit save, and this Jenkins server will do that for you. So that's the first thing that I'm going to show you guys. But before I do that, I'm just going to go and set up Git. So we've got the source control. Now we could again do that in the build step. We could do a Git checkout. We could log into the server, store our credentials, etc., and everything would be fine. Let's go ahead and click on Git here. So we've got a repository, we need to add some credentials, etc., etc. So let me go and grab the GitHub credentials that we need. Here is our repository, and you can see there that it's going to fail to connect because it needs our credentials. So in credentials, there aren't any in there at the moment. I'm going to click add, and we want a Jenkins credential. I'm going to put a username in here and a password. So my username is just TobyLock, and then my password is stored there. And I'm actually using my PAT token from GitHub as my password, which is a valid way of being able to communicate with GitHub. I'm not going to add anything else in there, apart from actually I will just set a description of GitHub PAT token and hit add. Now if I set that now and hit apply and hit save, let's go back into that and just have a look. And what we should notice is it still can't do it. So what I'm going to go and do is have a look on the server itself, and I have a feeling that Git might not be installed. And there we have it. So Git isn't installed. I'm going to go ahead and install Git. So on most people's Jenkins servers, obviously Git's going to already be installed. So on save, let's go back to configure. And now look, we don't have any errors. So Git is now there. It can do a git ls on that repository and see things. We then have different branches. So if we weren't using master, we were using main, or we were using a particular branch, we can set that here. And then we've got other things that we can do. So this is Jenkins out the box. I've allowed it to do the recommended plugins, but there's no special plugins here. And then we have the build steps. So what I'm now going to do is a very, very simplistic way of working with Ansible. And that is, I'm going to just run Ansible. So the first thing I need to do here is the Jenkins node. I'm actually going to go and install pip3 Python. It's Python 3 pip. Which will go and get me Python 3.6. And the reason I'm doing that is I prefer to install a later version of Ansible. Pip3 install Ansible is going to get us a 4.10 version of Ansible. And there we have it. So we should now be able to run Ansible playbook. And we can see here that we've got Ansible running. Great. So now what we need to do is go back to our host, and in here, we've already checked out the repository. The repository is here. And in here, we have a webserver.yaml and we have an inventory.txt. So this is where the difference is between Jenkins using Ansible and something like AWX, that you can set an inventory. Now, we could do that in Jenkins, but we can also just use an inventory file. So let's type it out. So it'll be Ansible playbook -i inventory.txt webserver.yaml. And that would be it. Now, if we wanted to make this inventory file, so if we have a look at what that inventory file looks like, it's very, very simple. It looks just like this. We could, on the command line, write it out. We could use a dynamic inventory and run a script that creates it. There's many things we can do. This is literally executing on the host. In Jenkins, I'm doing this on the master host. Obviously, in a production environment, most people would have slave hosts that they connect to. So let me just check that that IP address has come up correctly on the host that we are going to connect to. Yep, the IP address is correct. So we should just be able to hit save and then build now. And the thing I really like about Jenkins is you can then hit this and just go and watch the console output. And here we go. So here's our first problem. Permission denied. And the reason permission is denied is it's got no way of authenticating to that server. Now, we could go through and create a Jenkins file that grabs the secrets out of Jenkins and uses them to connect. Or on the host, we can just do an SSH. Well, we need to generate an ID first. So we need to become the Jenkins user. We can do SSH keygen to generate us a SSH key. We can then do SSH copy ID to root at 10.20.0111, put in its password. And now if we were to just try as the Jenkins user, we should be able to connect as root. So if we were to run this again, we shouldn't see that problem. So let's go back here, drop down on here, or rather just click there and hit build now. It's probably an easier way. And we'll see the build has been scheduled. Look, we can see here it's trying to connect via the Jenkins user. Now, the problem that we're going to have with that is that the Jenkins user hasn't got rights. You don't really want to set up Jenkins on every single server. So let's go back to our job. And here we can just do --user root. Hit save and build now. Now we can see that that's running. And off it goes. So it's setting the host name, it's installing EPEL. It's then going to go and install Nginx and create us a custom index file. So there are a few extra little jobs that you need to do with Jenkins to get it working. But in a production environment, you're probably going to have keys everywhere of things that you want to connect to. And you may start using Jenkins files and things like that. So while this is going, the last thing that I want to show you is how you can then schedule your job. So you can go to Configure. You can go a bit further down here and you will see Build Periodic. And you can set a schedule. And this schedule is a little bit like cron. So you can do *-5-1 ****. So that's going to be here. So it tells you based on that cron exactly when it's going to do it. If you press the little thing here, it tells you exactly. And if you do a -5, it actually says, are you sure you want to do that or do you want to spread the load out? And you could use this H-5 if you wanted to. But it shows you kind of examples of cron. Or you can just go to a cron calculator. So we can hit save. And that schedule has now been set. If I do it like this, it's going to run, configure. And hit save. That's now going to run every 5 minutes. And there we have it. So that's how to set up a Jenkins job. We can see there it is. It's already running, I think, because it's 10:45. And we can see that's going to go through and carry on doing that job for you. Now, the massive power that I feel that Jenkins has over something like AWX is that all I've actually done is run some bash script. The difficulty I have with AWX is I might want to run a Python script, I might want to run just a bash script, and then run Ansible, or run some Terraform and then run Ansible. AWX, I'm limited to running playbooks. And that doesn't really work for me in the modern world where people are using things like Terraform. It just doesn't work. There's other steps that you may need to do before running that playbook. And it's far better to have an all-encompassing tool like Jenkins that allows you to do it. There are some features of AWX that you out the box can't do in Jenkins, but most people are just running playbooks or chaining playbooks together or something like that. So I feel that Jenkins is suitable enough to be able to run Ansible playbooks correctly, safely, and again, you get the output of exactly what's happened.